Okay, welcome back, everyone, to another episode. This is not TED Talks. This is Tech Talks. Welcome to my TED Talk. Welcome to Cecilia's TED Talk, actually. So we have Cecelia here from Replay.io. She'll be talking about capturing bugs early. We also have Deep as one of my co-panelists here. How you doing this morning, Deep?
Yeah, hello.
Hi. Okay, so Cecelia, do you want to just give us a little intro about yourself, what Replay is, and
sure
anything else
thing.
you feel like we should know prior to the discussion?
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Cecelia Martinez. I am the community lead at Replay. So Replay is a tool that essentially lets you record a bug once and then reproduce and debug it forever. It allows you to record a runtime, typically in a browser, but you can also record node executions as well. And it creates a shareable URL of that recording with everything in the browser session. So if you think about your click events, your keyboard events, your network requests, even how the JavaScript executed. And so you can see executions at any point in time, including the React call stack. And my favorite part is you can add print statements or console logs retroactively. So it's a lot easier to kind of show than to talk about, but it's pretty magical once you see it in action. But really what we're finding for our users is that it allows them to debug those really hard to reproduce tricky bugs. Because you're allowed to, you can capture it once and then you can reproduce it forever. And then you can also record automated tests with it, which is kind of really exciting because before I used to work at Cypress, very used to testing automation, and debugging failed and flaky tests is something that I've spent a lot of time doing. So Replay can be a pretty cool game changer there. So we also just wanted to kind of give a shout out that we are open source and we work in public. So all of our team works in our Discord, like replay.io/Discord. So you can always chat with us, check out like what GitHub issues we have open. We have some open source contributors that work with us as well. And we provide support and free tooling for other open source projects. So that's a pretty big value of ours here is, something we really believe in is supporting open source. So
cool. So we talked about this a little bit before the show started, but just for everybody that is listening, what are some other tools out there that are similar to Replay.io that others might be familiar with, since you guys are pretty new?
Yeah, totally. So some of the things that we get compared to are other debugging tools. So for example, when you open up your browser, whether it's Chrome or Firefox, and you use the dev tools and you see like being able to inspect elements, network requests, that is very similar to the interface of Replay. So if you're familiar with those types of tools, you're going to feel very at home in a Replay. The difference is that when you're in a browser, everything is as of like the last thing that happened. Versus Replay, you create a recording so you can go rewind and fast forward and pause at certain points in time, and then inspect and then drill into where you need to go. It's also, we've been compared to things like LogRocket, Full Story, what are called session replay tools. So session replay tools do like create a recording of a session, usually if there's like an error occurs. And the difference here is that Replay has the debugging tools built in, but it also records the entire browser session, including that code execution. And then you can inspect and manipulate it after the fact. So if you wanted to go back, and if you didn't have telemetry set up for whatever error that you're encountered, which I have been there, it's kind of like, I think of telemetry as like you have a guy on the inside, but unless he's got good information and he's in the right place at the right time, then he's pretty much useless. So with Replay, you can go in and actually add console logs after the fact, and it'll evaluate how it was at that point in time. So we record everything, and we like essentially literally replay it with that new information when you re-execute it. So
that's pretty wild. So do you also, so like I'm used to Full Story. We've used Full Story in the past, but do you also record like the structure of DOM and how it changes over time, so you could literally see like what the user is seeing as well?
Yeah, so we actually, it's kind of cool because it's not really even a video. We are literally repainting the canvas based on the execution of the code. So when you're replaying a replay, you're literally like replaying everything. We capture everything that happened. And so you can see like, so even if you have like a rendering issue on the DOM because you're using a framework, you can actually dig into that and see what's happening. So so you can go forward at any point in time and see that viewer. You can see like where the click events took place. And then you can traverse down those click events into the component and then into the code that executed it.
Cool. So is this like a JavaScript SDK you include in your website, or how do you get it into your product?
Yeah, so the most common use case right now is you actually download the Replay browser. And so you visit a URL in the Replay browser, you hit record, and you record the runtime. That can be done obviously like in a development environment. It can be done in production if you're like, are you capturing like a end user bug? The other way that you can also use it is to record automated tests. So what that does is essentially wherever you're running your tests, it just swaps out the Replay browser for whatever other browser you would use, if it was like Chromium or Firefox or Electron. And then we also can record node executions, and that's something that you do install as an npm package, and then you run the command in order to record a node execution. But the Replay browser is, it's something that you just download, you install. It works just like any other browser. It's actually a fork of Firefox. So a lot of the people on the team, including the founders, come from Mozilla, where they worked on Firefox and Firefox dev tools. So that's kind of that's where all this is coming from.
That's awesome. I've even more love for Firefox. So that's what I use on a daily basis, and I do use Brave for deving, because the dev tools just look nicer. Like if I could change the font of the Firefox dev tools, I would, but I don't think I can.
Yeah, and so the default browser that you install is like a Firefox, fork. There is also a Chromium version. That's what you can use to record automated tests. By this summer, we should also have the downloadable, executable version of the Chromium Replay browser as well. So
nice. Deep, did you have a question?
So if we are recording any sessions, right? So is there any online storage we can store and set the recorder you recorded video you have?
Yeah, absolutely. So you essentially everything that you record gets uploaded to your Replay library, which then you can, like at any point, like I said, it's a URL and you can share it. So you can just share the URL, you can invite people to view it. But essentially, it's first and foremost actually a collaboration tool, because you have this URL with this recording. You can add comments and say, hey, here's where the bug happened. I think it might be this, like this code ran weird. And other people can look at it and use it. So all that goes to your Replay library. And then you can execute like locally, offline, and then upload using a Replay CLI as well. So if you ever needed to record something without being like online or without being in the browser, you can do that as well and then upload it after the fact.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be wrong here, can I ship Replay to my clients as well as part of my web application, or is it more like this is used by, like, because I'm not going to go tell my users, oh, go use the Replay browser and don't use Chrome, right? Obviously.
Yeah. So we find, right, like primarily it's used like by developers right now. That's kind of the first initial use case. And then we actually do have teams though that will tell their users, like who work with like on a support team. I used to do support myself. I was a support engineer for a while. And they will say, hey, like instead of sending us screenshots or instead of trying to record a Loom, just download this thing called Replay, like record it with us and then send us the URL. And we actually have like a one-page guide that they will send to their end users and have them install it and run it. And they've had actually a lot of success that way in reproducing those bugs that only happen on the user's machine. Because even if the support team is trying to reproduce it, if it's something specific to their caching, their cookies, like their machine specific, that's how it records it. So yeah, so it actually is an application that you run and then record an issue, which can be done like in any kind of environment.
Sweet. So obviously, like, you're open source, but there is still a backend component to it, right? Like your servers are the ones that are recording everything and replaying it all, right? And just sending to the browser what to replay. Can people self-host Replay, or is it all through your like SaaS?
Yeah. So currently it's kind of like interesting. So currently it's not self-hosted, but the replay protocol, which is what's used to like record and build out the backend, is also open source. So we do have like you could use that and leverage it and kind of like build a version of it, so to speak. And then the other thing to keep in mind is, or something, I guess another thing I wanted to mention is that long term, because we can record node executions, we are looking at the potential to be able to do long-term recordings of node executions of your application in order to surface like errors and things that will happen like in your deployment, in your production environment, without having to initiate a recording. So right now we're working on getting like long-standing recordings that could just be like an always-on mode. And then when you hit an issue, then it creates the replay automatically and uploads it. So that's like our next future use case. And that's why we've been kind of working on that replay node, because that'll allow us to record more executions in production versus having to have it open in a browser.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'd be really curious how you guys accomplish that, because like, you know, JavaScript is single threaded, so you don't want to like hammer the main thread by recording everything in the call stack and the DOM and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, service workers are still kind of limited in terms of their scope and their permissions and stuff. So very interesting problem that you all are solving over there.
It's actually like, it's kind of an impossible thing. Like it's kind of something that shouldn't be possible. And one of our engineers, Cannon, he wrote a blog post recently, and he's actually published another one like today or tomorrow, when he's on the backend side, and he digs into how it works, like from this like really like nuts and bolts, even like showing some of the C++ code that's used to like capture the thing. But it's actually it uses something called a partial determinism in order to make effective determinism. So it's recording enough of what happened in order to be able to replay it like after the fact. And it's like, it's really interesting to like dig into the actual tech behind it. And if anybody is interested in that, like, you know, we have, like I said, the replay protocol is open source. And you can also come into the Discord and chat with us and get more information about how it all works, because we love, you know, getting insights and help and everything on that. So.
Wow, that is absolutely wild. I love hearing about all these like, you know, cutting edge type things. Like the last one that I was loving to dig into is the web containers by StackBlitz. Like just like shipping a whole like, you know, Linux compatible OS written in WASM is like mind blowing to me, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure if you've seen Dynaboard, but that's kind of like another really interesting tech that I was looking at this week, because they, you know, like we were talking with them for replay, because those really like super complex, like in the browser applications is like our sweet spot, because those are really hard to debug. And yeah, so Dynaboard is another kind of one where you're able to do so much in the browser that it's like, wow, like how are they doing this?
Yeah, that's crazy. Let's see a demo.
Okay, yeah. So I can go ahead and share my screen, and the demo that I will do today, I like to just do like a really simple. It's the React Calculator app that comes from like the React examples, just so it's we can kind of dig into some code here. So
perfect. Let's do it.
Yeah. So just share, and then share screen one. All right. So can you see a React calculator?
Yes.
Perfect. Oh, I see it on screen now too. Okay, great. Okay, awesome. So this is a React Calculator app. Like I said, I'm running it locally just because that way it's kind of a little bit easier to work with for me personally. And so this is the replay browser. So you can see it looks like a regular browser. It's just something that I've installed on my computer, and it has this like record button up here. So I'll go ahead and record. It's going to reload the session. That way it captures all of the load data as well. And then you can just kind of interact with it like you would as a user. I happen to know that there is a bug in this app where if you divide by 0, you get an error. So we can go ahead and stop recording. And it's going to essentially generate this URL that we can then share. I'm going to go ahead and just like make this public. And I can actually like
chat.
Yeah, pop it in the chat. I put it there in the private chat, but
okay.
That way we can go ahead and dig into it. And like I said, This is like a shareable URL. You can configure however you want to share it with. So you can have like a team setup, you can have like public, you can have it in a couple of different ways. Everything is encrypted too, like at rest and in transit. And we do have plans, like if you wanted to host your own like S3 bucket with all of your recordings, if you have security considerations. But yeah, so that's something to keep in mind as well. And then going back, just like again, to show you the code while this is pulling up. This is my calculator app, and it's just like a React application. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to go ahead and reload this. And then the other thing to keep in mind too is you don't have to open replays in the replay browser. You can also open them in like Firefox, Chrome. Once you have that URL, the replay browser is just to record. You can review it in anything that you like.
Cool. So it's like building the recording right now?
I'm sorry?
Is it like building the recording right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so it's actually like it's loading it up. And then what it does is it interacts with our backend servers in order to replay it. So it's a little slower than it usually is. So I'm not sure if that's just like my internet that's happening. So yeah, so kind of maybe like while I'm streaming at the same time, it doesn't like it too much. And a couple of things to mention just like on security too, like we can never like view your replays. Everything is private. Like even if you run into an issue, you have to give us like access to it in order for us to be able to review it. So yeah, so that's something to also keep in mind as well. If you ever have any concerns. And replay is free, like for individuals, you can record as much as you want, like store your own like replays. It's just like if we have team and enterprise services. So, and it's always that way. So
cool.
Yeah, cool. I'm trying to pull up here and see if maybe there's something going on with my version of it. I
wonder if I haven't tried to open it myself.
Yeah, maybe something going on with my system here.
Let's open it in real Firefox. See what happens. It's pretty wild that you can use it for like replaying end-to-end tests and automated tests. Like, and I know you were saying before the call that you can, there's the node package for it as well. So you can, replay your unit tests, like ingest and stuff.
Yeah, so to kind of show what that looks like. So this is like a pull request. We forked the floating UI repository, and there's a GitHub action. So the GitHub action will like kick off the test. You can see in the GitHub action workflow. I just like changed something to break a test to show how it works, the functional test. But as part of like the GitHub action, it'll go ahead and generate the recordings of the failed tests, and it'll create them there. But then the bot actually will post back to the pull request and say, hey, like these are the tests that failed. Here is a link to the failed test. So then you can just like click on it, open up the replay, and like start debugging like why it had an issue. So
cool.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Mine's going pretty slow too, so I don't think it's your internet.
Okay, yeah. So while that's kind of loading up, I can, oh yeah, okay. So this is an example of the replay for the failed test here. I just kind of want to show you. This is a playwright test, and we can see, and we replay it. There's two modes here. Like the viewer mode is the default mode, and so we can replay it. We can see the test execution. We can see that this is off center, and that's why it failed. Going into our DevTools tab, this is going to look like very, very familiar. Like I said, you have your console, you have your elements, very similar to in a browser DevTools. You can see all like your CSS rules. You can see network requests and dig in and inspect into those. So yeah, so kind of wanted to give a quick show of that while that opened up here. So let me check on our replay browser here. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this is loaded up. And so this is our React calculator one that we just created, right? So here I'm in our viewer mode, which is the initial kind of mode that it opens up in. It has a really nice big screen, so you can see everything that's happening. If I am the person who found this bug, like if I'm doing manual QA or if I'm the developer and somebody did a pull request and I was like, let me just test this out, and it's like, oh, hey, like it's something is broken. I can see all the events here, and I can click in on those, and it jumps to that point in time. And so we can see that the DOM is changing, and we can also see that the timeline is moving across down here. And then I can also add some comments here. So I can say, like, if I go back to my last click here, and this is where I kind of divide by 0. And you can scrub fast forward and forward and backwards on the timeline. And I can just say, like, you know, divide by 0 error here. And then anybody who kind of comes after me will have that comment. So let's go ahead and click over to DevTools and see what's going on here. So I do have my error from the console. That's going to be similar to anything that you have here. So I can dig into the stack. I can go all the way down into the files. And if I click on it, it's going to open the actual source file and take me directly to the line that initiated that error. And so this is kind of within my calculate function. And I can kind of see all the JavaScript here. And as I hover over, I can also see how many times that line of code executed. I can also see on my function outline here how many times that function executed. So my calculate function executed 9 times. We have the React components. So if I back up in my application here, and I can see my React DOM tree, just like how you have React DevTools in the application, I can see my state, and I can see how my state changes over time. So if I back up here, and I see my state is null, plus, and 2, you know, way back here, my application state is null, null, null. And then we can also see any kind of, I can also select on the DOM, and it'll open up that component. I can see where my click handler is coming from, where it's being rendered, and my source here is like button panel. So that's kind of, you know, all very similar to what you would see like in a browser dev tools. The difference here is that you have that execution of point in time, so you can dig into any slot. For this one, I'm kind of more concerned with the JavaScript that took place. And so that's where the console and print statements will help us out here. So I can go into my click handler here, and I can see that this was handled 9 times. If I click on this plus icon, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, this will automatically log to the console the executions of that click handler. So I can see that everything that's happened here. And then I can fast forward and rewind through those executions. The next thing I can do though too is I can actually edit the output, and I can say, okay, so I'm doing this.props.name each time, and I can actually use autocomplete here and log that to the console. So now I can see what this.props.name was every single time that click was handled. And I can fast forward, I can rewind, and I can comment on any specific execution of that click handler. And then, so that can be really helpful when you're trying to, like, if you have components that are like rendering a lot, maybe you're using a use effect, or you have some kind of hook setup, and you want to understand what that very specific state was every single time that rendered, that will show. So same thing here in our outline on the left-hand side, I can see that this component, like the render function, ran 171 times. So if that seems like more than it should be, and I'm curious as to why that is happening each time, I can, you know, do the same thing here. I can expand this function here, my render function. I can see all the executions that took place, and I can also output to the console various values at that given point in time. If I don't want to output to the console, I can just go to an instance, and I can actually come in here, and I can see the call stack, and I can also see my scopes for that point in time. So if I wanted to, again, just see what all the scopes were, I can come in here and I can view based on the block level, the window level, and I can see the values of different things at that given time. So I can see like the class name, I can see what that array value was for those properties at that given time. And so that's really where it comes for the inspecting and then being able to see those values at different points in time. So to solve this actual bug, we can go back to our console and we can see our error stack. I'm going to go ahead and remove these print statements that we have here just to kind of clean up the console a little bit. And I can see that there's this like operate function, and that we do have a divide by 0 error that's supposed to throw. It's supposed to alert, but I can see that it has 0 hits. So I can see like that code was supposed to run, but it did not. And so what we can do here is kind of take a look and see why. Like it's supposed to say if 2 equals 0, then it's supposed to alert. So we can go ahead and log 2 to try and see like why that is for this given point in time. And what we can see here is that 2 is actually an object, and it looks like it's coming from our like use of this kind of like big library, this big.js library. So we're comparing the object to 0, which is always going to fail. So that is why we are never hitting our divide by 0 error. And so I can actually come here and I can add a comment to this specific code, and I can say comparing object to 0 will always fail. And then anybody that comes after me, even if they don't have any of these files open, they can click on that comment and it'll go directly to that line of code and give them that context that they need. So
crazy.
Yeah. So that's, like I said, it's a kind of a simple example, but I like to use it because it's easy, easy to follow along. One other example that I do like to show, and hopefully I can kind of get it pulled up here, is our a while back, I wrote this blog post about contributing to OSS with reproducible bug reports. Again, love talking about OSS. I worked in a lot of OSS projects, like in companies, and we talk about how even if you're not comfortable with doing like a pull request, but you want to help, creating good GitHub issues with reproducible bug reports is a way that you can contribute. So I actually recorded a bug in Calidraw that was an open issue. It had been kind of stale for about a month and a half, had never really been resolved yet. And I tried reproducing it myself in Replay, and I recorded it. And I was able to actually like debug it with Replay. I had no experience with the code base. I never pulled it down and ran it locally, just entirely within the Replay. I was able to kind of find out that there was this negative infinity, not a number, values being output from that element new width value, and able to figure out that there's actually a divide by 0 error here too. I don't know why dividing by 0 is so hard. But maybe it's just me. I just keep finding those. But it was also a divide by 0 error that was happening with this Calidraw issue, and they ended up fixing it the next day. They were able to fix it because it was I was able to point to that exact line that was causing the problem. So yeah, so this is kind of more of like a real world example, and this is a public replay too. If anybody wants to dig in there and check it out. So
cool. Wow, that's really awesome.
Yeah, really awesome. So I was using the Chrome profiler to debug the issue, and so I'll try this. So
yeah, Profiler is a great tool, kind of for understanding performance. That's something that we actually are looking to bring in the React DevTools profiler, because there's a React DevTools profiler as well. That's something that Brian Vaughn on the team is going to be working on, and how to incorporate that into Replay too. So yeah, a lot of debugging tools are really great, and we just want to be able to give you that same experience, basically.
Totally. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that was very informative. Anything else you want to shed out? We're coming up to the end of the stream. Anything you want to share, pitch, shamelessly plug?
Yeah.
What's your Twitter? Where people find you?
Yeah, so you can find us like Replay.io in most places. I would want to say you can join our Discord, replay.io/Discord. We work in public. Please come chat with us. Tell us what you think. Let us know if you run into any issues. We also do weekly streams of our office hours, where we kind of dig in. We do some live debugging. We talk about things that we've released that week. You can get all that information too, in our Discord. But we also stream on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube. The last thing I will say is replay.io/OSS, which will take you to information about if you have an open source project and you want to incorporate Replay, either for better bug reproduction or recording automated tests. We can help you get set up. We have free plans and everything. Help you figure out how to make sure you have source maps uploaded and everything like that. So that's a kind of a good resource there. And then, if, like I said, join us in Discord if you have any questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It was good chatting with you. we'll definitely want to revisit this at some point in the future. I'm excited for the what happens with all the stuff that you're talking about, and the SDK you're referring to, shipping to the browser, to always like the always on recording kind of thing. Really curious how that's going to end up working out. So yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Cecelia.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This was super fun.
Great. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Deep.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, until next time. I believe we have another one scheduled, but I can't remember who it was now. Oh, no, the next one is exploring NX Dev tools with one of the Narwhal team. So
Nice.
should be
Love
really
Narwhal.
exciting. I contribute to NX like as much as I possibly can. I probably contribute to it more than any other open source project out there. So I'm really excited for that one. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, goodbye, everyone. Have a good day to start. Have a good sleep if it's your end. Talk to you later.